All right, let's dive into one of the biggest archaeological mysteries out there. We're talking about Göbekli Tepe. Okay, to really get why this place is such a big deal, you have to wrap your head around just how old it is. I mean, it's not just ancient, it's way older than the pyramids in Egypt. And not just by a little bit. We're talking thousands of years. It's even thousands of years older than Stonehenge. But here's the part that just completely blows up everything we thought we knew about human history. This place was built before people started farming, before cities, before villages, even before they figured out how to make pottery. A place like this it just shouldn't exist that far back in time. So yeah, this one single site forced us to basically tear up the old history books and start over. And it leaves us with these two huge questions. Who on earth built this thing? And why? All right, so let's get into what we actually know. This site, Göbekli Tepe, is in modern-day Turkey. And yeah, it's the oldest temple we've ever found. But just calling it old doesn't even begin to cover it. I mean, look at this timeline. It really shows you what we're dealing with. We're talking about something built around 9500 BCE. The gap between it and something like Stonehenge or the pyramids it's thousands and thousands of years. It's almost hard to even imagine that much time. And what's really mind-blowing isn't what these people had, it's what they didn't have. I mean, think about it. No farming, no cities, no writing. They didn't even have the wheel or metal tools to cut and move these gigantic stones. And yet, somehow, they pulled it off. And this is where things get really interesting. This site points to a totally radical idea, a theory that just turns our whole story of human civilization completely on its head. You know, the story we've always been told is pretty simple. First, people figure out farming, then they build towns, and then, with all that extra time and resources, they develop complex religion. But Göbekli Tepe hints at the complete opposite. What if the temple came first? I mean, just think about that for a second. Could the desire to gather at a sacred place like this actually be what sparked the invention of farming? Picture it. Bands of hunter-gatherers meeting up for huge rituals. They'd need a reliable way to feed everyone, right? Maybe that's what pushed them to start planting crops. So did religion actually create civilization? Okay, let's zoom in on the stones themselves, because they are covered in this incredible, mysterious art, a kind of symbolic language that we're still trying to crack. So the whole site is famous for these huge T-shaped pillars. The leading idea is that they're meant to be stylized people, maybe gods or ancestors, and they are just covered in these detailed carvings, especially of animals. The fox, for example, shows up all the time. And these aren't just pretty pictures of animals. No way. Just look at this boar. It's snarling. It's aggressive. A lot of the art shows these really powerful, dangerous, and often male animals. There's a real sense of raw energy there. This has led archaeologists to a really cool theory. Maybe these weren't just animals. Maybe they were what you'd call power animals, powerful spirits or guardians that were a huge part of their belief system. You can almost imagine them being part of intense shamanic rituals, you know? But what does it all mean? That's the million-dollar question. Were they symbols of different tribes? Were they characters from their myths? Could they even be astronomical maps marking the stars? Honestly, we don't have a clue. Without any writing, their true meaning is still a complete mystery. So that brings us back to the people themselves. Who were they? Let's talk about these ghost builders, these incredibly clever hunter-gatherers who just completely shattered our image of the Stone Age. This right here is the central puzzle. On one side, you've got what we thought hunter-gatherers were, small nomadic groups. But on the other, you have this incredible achievement that requires massive social organization, long-term planning, and just stunning artistic skill. It just doesn't add up. And it's not just us saying this. The experts, the archaeologists studying the site, they all say the same thing. This level of complex building is just unheard of for hunter-gatherers. They weren't just stacking rocks. They were designing these spaces with purpose. And we have to remember, these weren't primitive cavemen. These were people with brains just like ours. They were every bit as smart, as creative, and as capable of working together as we are. Göbekli Tepe is the ultimate proof of that. Okay, and now we get to maybe the weirdest part of the entire story. After using this place for over 1,000 years, the builders did something unbelievable. They buried it. On purpose. Yeah, you heard that right. Around 8000 BCE, they filled the whole thing in with tons of dirt and rock. It wasn't a natural disaster, they weren't conquered. They carefully buried it, which leads to the biggest question of all. Why? Why pour all that effort into building something so amazing just to hide it from the world? Well, there are a few big theories floating around. Maybe it was some kind of ritual burial, like closing a chapter on their world. Or maybe as farming became the new way of life, a place for hunter-gatherers just wasn't relevant anymore. Or, and this one is pretty compelling, maybe they thought it was just too sacred, too powerful to be left out in the open. Whatever the real reason was, that act of burying it is exactly why it's so perfectly preserved for us to find today. It's like a time capsule, a message sent across 12,000 years from our ancestors, a message we're still struggling to read. So when you put it all together, Göbekli Tepe doesn't just change the timeline of human history, it completely breaks it. It's proof that our ancestors had rich spiritual lives, complex social structures, and incredible creativity long, long before we ever thought possible. Who they were and where they went, well, that remains one of the greatest mysteries in all of archaeology.